everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday night, coming to you from Encouragement Community Church, our Wednesday night midweek study. We're so excited tonight because we're doing something a little different tonight and next week. Tonight, we're going to have part one of the testimony of our sister, Lisa Garcia. A testimony from darkness unto light. So we are so excited to hear her testimony. Tonight, she's going to do part one. And don't miss it because next Wednesday she'll be picking it up, doing part two. And it's a testimony that's going to bless you. Invite people, share wherever you're at. And if you know anybody who's possibly going through situations, invite them to come on and to watch. But it's going to be a great night. And also just want to thank all of you for supporting Encouragement Community Church. And in the chat box, there'll be a lot of information about our church, about different things. So without further ado, I want to welcome my big sister, our sister, and be blessed tonight, Lisa Garcia. She's going to jump in the frame. Come on, Elise.
Well, hello, everybody. How you all doing? Thank you for tuning in. Like my brother Marty said, this is going to be the story of my life, the story of the things that I went through. And if any of you are out there and you're doubting God, after you hear this testimony, you're gonna think again, because God has done so much in my life that hopefully you'll ask yourself again, like I did, is there really a God? And let me tell you, there is. So with that, let me get started with, I'm going to kind of break down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to break it down, and I'm going to talk about my family life growing up. I'm going to talk about the gangs and organizations that I was in, about my marriage, my daughter, my divorce, talk about drug addiction. I'm going to talk about jail time and prison time. I'm also going to talk about my gay lifestyle that I lived for 45 years. I'm going to talk about when I gave myself to the Lord, when I started attending church, Bible studies, and go get a cup of coffee, get something to drink, and sit down and let's do this together. So it all starts off with growing up. Like my brother, Pastor Marty, said, I grew up in Whittier, California, and I came from a really good family. My father, my mother, my two younger brothers, Pastor Eric and Pastor Marty, and then our older sister, Lydia, a.k.a. we would call her Dee Dee. And she's no longer with us today, but I know if she was listening, she'd be more than proud to know that I'm doing this today. Anyways, as growing up, it was just like a regular childhood. For some, they would say. I know for myself, like I said, I came from a good family, but I tended to take the wrong routes. I was the one that was, going astray and hanging out with the wrong crowd. When I was about 15 years old, I wanted more attention. I wanted, even though I had it all at home, I went out looking for somebody to take me in. And of course, I got involved into the gangs. I got involved with the gangs for a long time. There was a group of us, my high school friends, and if you're watching, you know who you are. And, we went through some crazy times together. And we would all meet up. It was funny because my mom and dad lived in a good area in Whittier, and I would bring the whole gang down to my mom's house because my mom was, always cooking for them. My mom was known for her refried beans. And everybody would come over and mom would feed everybody. So, we'd have all kinds of gang members there at my mom and dad's house. And, the neighbors, they knew who we were. Everybody was okay with everybody because they knew that our neighborhood was protected from this gang. So, when growing up, I would bring people in and out. And then, I started partying. Well, I have to go back and say I smoked my first joint when I was 8 years old. My family used to have family parties at the house because we had a big house and we had the den and everything. And so all the adults, all the tias and tios, they would come down to my mom's house and they'd have food and they were drinking, and all us young kids would be running around the house, and they would leave their drinks on the table, and we would go by and we'd grab a drink and we'd grab a drink and we'd actually get drunk. And we did this for, oh my gosh, I don't even know how long we did this for, but that was the family gatherings that we used to have. And my friends that were in the gangs, they were like really close friends, you know. And like I said, when it was just us, you know, they protected. My mom and dad weren't afraid of them or anything like that because they always respected mom and dad. And then as I was in the gangs, I also got introduced to organizations, the Mexican Mafia. And I don't know, I thrived on this type of lifestyle. I had adrenaline rushes, and I was young, so, you know, it was all new to me. So it was like, I wanted to do this, you know, I wanted to get involved. And so I did, and it was like some of the things that it takes a young person to, I would never put any young kid in that mess, you know, because some of the things that happen and go on, you know, and here I thought I was big and bad, and, you know, because, oh, I know so-and-so, and I know this person, you know, but it wasn't all about that, because it took a turn for, well, I'd say the word, the good and the bad, because during that time, I met my daughter's father. I met him when I was about 16, but I met him, we were going out, we were dating, and he knew the gangs too, you know, and he wasn't like a hardcore cholo, as we call it. He was like long hair, you know, mustache, but my gang friends, they liked him. And it was funny because I have pictures of my ex-husband and some of the gang members, and you know how everybody takes those pictures and they're all, you know, whatever. And then here you see a guy with long hair and just chilled and kicked back, you know. But they really liked him, you know. So he would hang around when he would come down to Whittier, because he lived in Watts. And he would come down every once in a while to Whittier, and I'd always be with the gang members, you know, hanging out with them. We'd be partying and drinking and getting high and doing whatever we could, you know. But so at the age of 18, I got married. I got married to my daughter's father, and then 2 years later, age 20, I was pregnant, and I had my first daughter. I have a beautiful daughter, Angelina, and I have 5 beautiful grandkids, and my son-in-law, Cartel. They all live in Australia right now. They're little Aussies, and so growing up, like I said, when I got married, and then he moved me out of Whittier, where the gangs were, and he moved me, and I went to Watts to live. Now, Lord knows, you know, being as crazy as I was, and then when I was out there in Watts, I used to hang out in South Central LA. You know, I would take off, and I'd go driving around, and I'd be looking for drugs, and just crazy things that I never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be out there doing. Now, I never today would I ever be out in those streets, you know. I can't even imagine some of the things that when I used to party, you know, used to get out there, and the places that I've been, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there is a God, because I know he was watching me all along. I know the good Lord was watching me. And you know, it was funny because my 2 brothers, Pastor Eric and Pastor Marty, and my sister Dee Dee, they were all Christians. My mom, dad, and myself, we were Catholics. And it was funny because, you know, in the household, you know, the 2 different denominations, my brothers would always be praying for me. My mom would pray, you know, my dad, and I remember my dad saying, you know, the day you get sober is the day that I'll start going to church. Well, this is down the line, but when I had my marriage, I wasn't married too long. I was married for about 7 years. I had my daughter, but I partied too much. I partied heavily. And my husband at the time, he had my daughter. So I ended up going to jail. But before that, by the age of 18, I was already addicted to heroin. Okay, I did all kinds of drugs. People used to tell me, she's like Mikey, she'll try it, and she would, and it was, I don't know what it was, but I got addicted to heroin quick, and I couldn't get off the stuff. And so all in between, I was a heroin addict for 27 years. And God knows that I tried to quit so many times. I went through rehabs. I went through the methadone clinic. I went through programs left and right. I think I went to all the programs that were out there in Whittier, Santa Fe Springs, and Norwalk area. And I still didn't get it right. And so when I was involved with all these drugs and everything, eventually I got arrested. This is for you, Irma, if you're watching. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day when we were like 15, 16 years old, the first time I ever got arrested, we used to go to her sister's house because her sister was paraplegic, and we used to go and help take care of her. And there would be all these people over there, and they'd be partying, and Irma and I were just there hanging out, and watching her sister, but we'd see all these people coming in the house. Well, one time, they did a raid, and God knows, I don't know where you were at, Irma, but God knows, when the cop came up to me, and he was standing next to me, he's like, hurry up, put on your shoes, because they had us all up against the wall, and they were going to take us in. And so when I went to put my foot in my shoe, there was a syringe in my shoe. Oh my gosh. And I wasn't going to say anything, so I still put the shoe on, and I had the syringe in it, so they have us up against the wall. And then I lie about my age, and I told them I was 18. I was only 15 at the time. And so they take us all to jail. They took us to Civil Brand. Okay, that was a women's prison, county jail over here in, I can't even remember where it was at. But it was on top of the hill, and where Biscaloo was, where the police academy used to train. And they took us up there, and I wasn't big and bad anymore because they were already getting ready to book me. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh my gosh, and when they found the syringe, oh my gosh, that was even worse. And like I said, Irma, I don't know what happened to you. I don't remember that part. But sure thing, I sure started crying really quick. And I was like, I don't want to be here. I'm not 18, and I was telling them, and they released me to my parents. And I remember my dad had to come down and pick me up. And I was so scared. I was so scared. And that was the first time I ever gotten, arrested or anything like that. So, years went on down the line, and I was getting in trouble. I was doing all the drugs, I was involved in the drug world. And even when all that was happening, later in my story, I'm going to go into my gay lifestyle. Back then, I was gay at the time, and I got married for society reasons because I thought if people thought I was married and I had a child, well, then I'm okay. They won't look at me that way. But we'll get into that further. And so all this time I'm doing the drugs. I'm partying like crazy. My mom and dad can't keep me home. I'm going in and out of the house. I think I moved out when I was like 15 years old. And, when I was involved in the gang activity and the organization activity, I thought I was cool and everything, but it wasn't that cool because of all the things that happened during that time. I can't remember everything, to be honest with you, but I know there were some bad incidents that happened, and I know I was a part of it, and I'm not proud of it. But this is why I'm speaking to you and telling you this story, because I want you to know the power of God. I give God all the glory to this day, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if it hadn't been for the good Lord. So anyways, when I was going back and forth to prison, county jail, I ended up, back in the day, they used to have this thing called a county lid. I don't know if some of you know about it, but what it was is that when you got arrested, that they could keep you there at the county for a year. Like, it capped off at a year. And I'm not sure if you went over a year, then they finally send you to state prison. Well, I did this for 9 years. I was going back and forth, back and forth. You know, it was back to back, back to back. And finally, after the 9th year, I guess they got tired of me, and they said, oh no, we're shipping you off to Chino. I went to the Women's State Penitentiary, and I was there at Chino for 4 years. And, you know, here I thought, wow, you know, doing this time, in my mind, I was just like, I was completely out there. I had no conscience. I didn't care. I didn't care if I hurt people. I didn't care the things that I did, you know. And I know God has forgiven me today because, like I said, some of the things that I did was just outrageous, you know. And I plead with God all the time, but I know God has forgiven me. And even when I was in jail, there were times, you know, I used to like to fight in jail. I used to fight with the officers. I couldn't get it right, you know, that just go along with the program and you'll be okay. Well, no, hardhead over here, stubborn over here, and I always fought it, and I always fought it. And I got beat down in jail. I got beat down bad in jail by the cops. And there was a time my mother came to get me, and I was so badly beaten that I don't know how my mother did it, but she got me out of there, and she got me into a regular hospital. I swear, I felt like it was like a Rodney King incident, you know, but it was just some of the things I experienced in there, and, you know, I thought I could get, you know, getting drugs out in the streets. You got them more when you were locked up, you know, and we were still getting high in there. So I was still getting high on heroin. I was smoking dope inside the jails. Whatever we could get our hands on is what we did. Even making things, you know, hooch, a thing you make, you know, that you can get drunk off of. I mean, there was crazy things that I learned, you know, and at the time I was a lot younger, so I thought it was cool and everything. But, you know, now that I think about it, and now that I'm older, you know, it was dumb. It was pretty dumb of me to do the things that I did. But going back to the drug addiction, not only was I hooked on heroin, but I was hooked on cocaine. I didn't start doing meth until later on, and they always used to say that heroin was the worst drug you could be on. Well, no, I don't believe that's true. I believe methamphetamine, I mean, that drug will really take you out, you know, and it did me. And just so much stuff that I put into my body today, and knowing that today that this is the temple of God, you know, I would never do anything like that to this day. And yes, I will say never. I know there's a saying that people say never. But to this, oh yeah. And especially with all the things that are going on today with the fentanyl and, you know, kids dying and overdosing and everything. I mean, God can take all of it away, and he can take it away instantaneously, because that's what he did with my heroin addiction. One day, I remember my friend was in the hospital, and she was dying of alcoholism. She was losing it, and the doctors were saying that she was going to die. And I was so scared, and this is one of my best friends, and I was going back and forth to the hospital, spending time with her, then coming home, spending time with her, coming home. And one night I couldn't take it. So I got on my hands and knees, and I said, God, please take this addiction away. I can't handle this anymore. You know, I thought I was going to kill myself. I really did, for as many drugs and as much drugs as I was doing. And I kid you not, God instantaneously took that addiction away. The next morning I woke up, and I was like waiting, because there was a certain time that you had to use heroin or your body would get sick. And So I'm like looking at the time, and I'm waiting for that to kick in, and nothing, it doesn't kick in, so I'm like, what's going on here? Even I had a friend that came by, I'll never forget, my friend came by, and she had some heroin with her, and she goes, well, I'm going to leave you this because you're going to get sick, and I was like, no, that's okay, you don't have to leave it. And then she goes, no, just take a couple of them. So I took a couple of them, and I put them away, and all that day, I got ready to go see my friend again in the hospital. And when I had asked God to take away that addiction, I also asked him to heal my friend. Now, I wasn't a believer yet. I mean, I knew about God. I knew there was a God because my brothers, they were pastors. Well, they weren't pastors yet, but they were into the Lord, and they were into the Lord heavy, and they would always pray for me. Everybody was always praying for me. And so I knew that there had to be a different kind of lifestyle. There had to be something that was different. So when he took that drug addiction away from me, oh my gosh, I was blown away. I really was. Because I was like, how do you just stop? It's like an alcoholic who drinks every day, and all of a sudden it's cut off. How does that happen? You don't hear stories of that. But in my case, yes, he did take that away, amongst all the other drugs, because I couldn't even get high on anything else. When I tried something else to get high on, it did not work. And I was like, oh my gosh, is there really a God? And I thought, okay, he did the drug addiction part of it, okay? So I go on, and I'm still in prison. I did, I was 25 years old when I got arrested the second time. And by the time I did all the time in the county jail, and then I went to state prison, I did the 4 years. I got out of the state prison when I was 38, okay? But I was still partying, okay? I partied on the other stuff, but because the heroin addiction came after the fact. Let me back up a little bit, okay? Because when God healed me from all the drugs, but I was still partying in between there. And, like I said, all in between, I was into that gay lifestyle. And I know a lot of people say, oh, did you turn gay because you were in prison? No, I didn't. Oh, did you have a bad experience with a man or something? No, I've never been molested. I've never been raped, thank God. Nothing like that. It was a choice that I made. And remember what I said, it was a choice, okay? So, being in that lifestyle, I'm just gonna hit the top parts of it, because I was in that lifestyle for 45 years, and this is my story, so I'm talking about me. And I remember being as young as about 5 years old when I noticed that I was different. And something wasn't right. I was always a tomboy. I was always hanging around the boys. I loved to be with the guys, and they liked hanging with me because I was a little tomboy. I wasn't all girly and everything growing up, and I'm still like a little tomboyish, I guess. But the girly stuff, the little dresses, the makeup, and all that. My friends, they were like into all that, and I'd be with them, but I'd be hanging out with the guys most of the time. And used to talk with the guys. But I remember, I was that young. I was like 5 and 6, and then as I got older into high school, I remember my gym teacher. I used to think my gym teacher was cute, okay? I had a crush on her. And I laugh about it today because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this gym teacher was ugly, now that I think about it, and I still have those little crushes, and I had little crushes on people, but I didn't want nobody to know. I was like, I guess what they call it, like being in the closet. And so my close friends knew about it, but I never even confessed it to my mom and dad. And I think that kind of had a part why I did a lot of the drugs. And I went on, and I was still, messing around with the drugs, because I'm telling you, it took me a long time to get off. That's why I said the drug addiction after the fact. And in the gay lifestyle, I used to say, no, I was born with it. No, this is how God made me. No, I would fight you so hard on it, because it was like, as much as I believe in the Lord today and give God all the glory, I believe that way in the gay lifestyle. So I really thought in my head, because my head was like twisted, and when I understand where they're coming from, because I understand them. See, but people don't understand. It's kind of a hard thing. And it's not that God hates somebody that's gay. It's not that. He hates the sin. The sin is wrong, and it even states so in the Bible. And I remember, always reading, I believe it's in Corinthians, that you can't get to heaven, and there's a whole list of things, an adulterer, a sorcerer, goes on and on, and it says homosexual. And I just always wondered about that, I always wondered, like, what does this mean? And I went to churches, I went to gay churches, and I was searching and looking, and I had a lot of gay friends, and I hung out because I really got involved in the gay lifestyle, the pride parades. I used to have a motorcycle, and I would ride in the parades. I was one of the bikes on dikes, if you say. And everything that was with the lifestyle, I did. And I honestly believed it, because it was in my head. And you couldn't tell me any different, okay? Because that's what I honestly believe. Well, as I grew older, I had my first experience with a woman in my early 20s, and I continued on, and backing up a little bit, that's why I got married. I got married, like I said, for society reasons, and just so that people won't say, oh, okay, she's like that, or oh, okay, because back in my day, it was more like hush-hush kind of thing. People didn't talk about it like how they do today. But there were so many things, and then didn't want people to really know, because of what their way of thinking, society's way of thinking, and they were always down on it. But anyways, I'm gonna get into more of it when we come back on part 2, and you really need to hear the other side of it, because it's going to blow you away. And I just wanted to kind of touch base on it, because just showing you the power that God has. And like I say, I wouldn't be here today. Seriously, I was on my deathbed 7 times, and I used to ask, why is he sparing me? And I couldn't figure it out. I've been shot twice, I've been stabbed, I've been beaten badly, left for dead, and I couldn't understand it. But there's a reason why I'm here today. So you guys tune in next week, and we'll follow up on my gay lifestyle. So with that, I thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And let me pray for you. Father God, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for this testimony and sharing with people out there. I hope that we were able to bless somebody, just one of you at least watching. And Lord, we just thank you and give you all the glory, because without you, Lord, we're nothing. And with that, we give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name.